Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you're at, and welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Aljets, and I'm joined, as always, by...
Maggie Lovett.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't say as always, because there's a chance I might be joined by somebody else.
This is true.
But, that, uh, anyways, today on the episode, we've got quite a few wonderful things for you to listen to us ramble on about. Today we were talking about the Aardman Animation clay situation, which, if you don't know what that is, we're going to fill you in on that. We're going to talk about Mickey Mouse's copyright coming up after it turns 95 years old and what that could mean for the wider media landscape. But before we get into that, let's jump into the box office numbers. But before we actually even do that, Maggie, how are you doing? I
I'm
should
doing
ask how you...
really good. I know. I was like, geez, I guess he doesn't care how I am today. I'm good.
It's Monday.
It is Monday, and I'm like stressing about packing and like getting panel questions ready for this weekend. So that is solely where my mind is.
Most people are worrying about like Thanksgiving and things of that nature, but
See, I had Thanksgiving last weekend. I had it on Friday. Thanksgiving is coming past for me. It is over. Had a life day Thanksgiving.
Very nice and very on brand.
So very on brand.
Anyways, well, I'm glad to hear that you're at least, functioning.
Yes.
I know that it is going to be a very stressful week for you with Fan Expo coming up.
Exciting too. So
which we will talk a little bit about Fan Expo and what Maggie's going to be doing after we get through most of these stories when we do our little housekeeping segment there at the end. So stick around for that because she's got some exciting stuff coming. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the first story of the day, which is the box office recap for the weekend. And boy, this has been a confusing weekend to try to track down the numbers for this. Because there's been conflicting stories on who's on top and who's where and how much money is being made by what. But I think I have it pinned down. So I think that we're solid to go. So this weekend saw the opening of two rather large properties. Well, I mean, I guess large relatively, depending on how you look at it. That is, we have the new Hunger Games film, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and we have a new Trolls film, Trolls, what's it called? Trolls Band Together was out this weekend as well. Now, those two were the two films that were going to be the ones that you want to be paying attention to as far as the box office. And with the numbers coming in, it looks like Trolls Band Together is on top internationally, while the Hunger Games was the domestic winner for us. Internationally, Trolls Band Together pulled in about $108 million internationally across all markets, while the Hunger Games pulled in about 98 million, 98, 99 million, depending on how you want to round that. But domestically speaking, Trolls Band Together pulled in only 30 million in US markets, whereas the Hunger Games pulled in 44 million. That I feel like that kind of tracks. Like you would expect the US to be maybe a little bit more Hunger Games focused than Trolls focused. I've never got the vibe that Trolls is that big here in the States.
No.
Did you grow up with troll dolls? Did you have troll dolls as
No,
a kid?
I was actually just having this conversation with my mom. I never had the troll dolls. I do think I may have had like a trolls doll that like my grandmother got one of those like grab bags at like Salvation Army or Goodwill, and like there was a trolls doll in there, and I think that's like the extent of my trolls experience. I have seen one of the trolls movies, and I mean they're fun. They're kind of like Sing and the one with the animals, I can't remember what it's called. They're like all criminals, has a wolf, and there's a Christmas special of it.
This sounds insane.
I think it's called The Bad Guys. I think it's called The Bad Guys or something like that. And there's a holiday special coming out. So it's that same vein of like kids movies that like have a weird adult following as well.
That sounds oddly bonkers. Like
yeah, that one's actually quite fun. The Bad Guys or whatever it's called. That one was a fun movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but Hunger Games, as I said, it is a prequel to the main series, so a good jumping on point for sort of people who don't really know what's going on, but then also fans are going to be getting quite a bit out of it. I actually have not seen either of these movies, so I can't really speak to them. But that is your box office information. Outside of that, this week we also had Thanksgiving was pulling in some pretty good numbers. It did about 10.2 million domestically. The Marvels saw a fall off at the box office, which is kind of to be expected going into subsequent weekends after the release, you always do see a drop off. People are making a huge deal about how much it dropped off, but it's like, guys, it's the second weekend. There's always a huge drop off, or third weekend, or I'm losing track of time. Time is becoming a blur for me.
We're
Uh,
slipping into the liminal space period of time from Thanksgiving to New Year's where like nothing actually matters or like exists.
yeah, you just lose weeks. You're just like, I don't know what's happening in this weird, bizarro world.
Yeah.
But yes, so of course there's gonna be a drop off, and then of course Five Nights at Freddy's rounds out our top five at $3.5 million domestically. That film had way more legs than I expected it to, considering that it was also streaming.
Yeah.
But
I
I
agree.
guess I guess people want to go see animatronics doing animatronic things on the big screen. Can't
Yeah.
really say that I blame them, but you
No.
know.
And I was really happy to see that both Saltburn and the Holdovers are doing well considering they've only had limited theatrical releases. And those are the two that I'm like really rooting for. But one thing that I thought was really interesting in regards to Hunger Games is the fact that like sure we as like movie people know who Rachel is, who Hunter is, who Tom is, who Josh is. Like those are all people that we're aware of, but they're none of them are household names. So the amount of money that made without having like somebody huge to anchor it is really impressive. And they also didn't spend buku bucks on it. So they're going to make back their money on it. I think that's something that hasn't been discussed a lot in relation to the success of that film. Also, it's been how many years since the last Hunger Games movie? And like, I think that's a really sizable amount of money to make in an opening weekend for that.
Yeah, I mean the film has it's underperforming from what they sort of expected
Yeah.
apparently, but it's still doing well enough that it's justifying its existence at the very least.
Yeah. And it's not like it
Um
has to make a certain amount to get a next one made or something like that. This is
yeah,
really a
no.
one and done, which I think is a smart thing that they chose not to split it into two.
Wouldn't be surprised though if this, leads to more spin-offs set in the
Yeah.
universe and things of that nature. It's a franchise, you're going to see that. Like it's just going to happen. And then Trolls, it's Trolls. Like it's a
Exactly.
Trolls I think nobody ever bought a troll doll. I don't think that they were ever purchased. They just materialized in people's
Kind of like
homes.
Furbies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Furbies people hate bought. But
I love my Furby. I don't know what's wrong with all y'all. My Furby was made BFF.
it's creepy as hell. Um, because like I had a troll doll when I was like a little kid, and I'm just like, why do I have this? Nobody bought this. I
What
buried
hair
it.
color did it have?
I don't remember because I like as a little kid it weirded me out because I was like this little like weird naked thing with hair that stood straight up. I was like, what I buried it under my back porch while my brother and I were playing paleontologists. I was like, I'm gonna bury this and we'll dig it up later, and then we never did. Good.
There's probably like five
Sometimes
or six
dead is
more
better.
now. It's like spawned more under the deck. Yeah.
There's probably some Scandinavian folktale that this would like line up with, but
I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
that's something that Robert Eggers should take on. He could do a really terrifying Trolls movie.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it. Speaking of trolls, like this movie has nothing. This is absolutely nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. But I saw a movie at Fantastic Fest that actually applies to this that I want to talk about
Okay.
because I don't get to talk about it anywhere else. There's a movie that I saw called "There's Something in the Barn." It's a Norwegian film
Oh,
about an American family that moves to Norway because the father's like I think it was his uncle passed away and they inherited this house, and they discovered that there's a barn troll or barn elf, yeah, barn elf living in their barn, and shenanigans ensue. It's a really fun horror, but like not really. uh Highly recommend it, so go check it out. That's
I missed
just my
that one
little
at
spiel.
Fantastic Fest. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just like one of those random movies that I went and saw, and I was like, sure, I'll watch this. And it was a good time. So highly
Nice.
recommend it. Uh, anyways, moving on to the next thing. Uh, let's talk about the Aardman Animation clay situation. So it was reported over the weekend that Aardman Animation, I hope I'm saying that right, Aardman or Erdman. I've
Aardman.
never seen it said out loud, so I've always just said Aardman. They're the company behind films such as Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run, which is a big one for me. I grew up with Chicken Run, love Chicken Run. Uh, flushed away if you're, if that's your bag. I never really liked that film that much, but that's just because I don't know. I think I was too old for that movie when it came out. But anyways, it was reported over the weekend that they were in a little bit of trouble because the company that produces their clay, I'm trying to see if I can find the name, New Clay Products, actually shut down. They had to close their doors because the owners were retiring and nobody wanted to take over. So just like, you know what? Guess this is the end of the run. And they produced a specific type of clay that Aardman Animation used
The
for
end,
their,
the end of the chicken run.
yeah. God, you're the worst. Um, but in like the best way possible. Anyways, they were producing this clay. They were going to stop producing it, and it was reported that Aardman was in a tough spot because it seemed like they only had about enough clay for one more movie. They have another Wallace and Gromit piece in the works. So it seemed like that was going to be probably the last thing that they were going to be able to produce, at least in their style. However, that's where the story was going to be for this show. When I was making the show notes yesterday, that was the current information that we had. So I was like, okay, we're going to talk about this a little bit. It has Aardman has actually responded to this information, and they're just basically like, hey guys, we're in a good spot. This was their statement that they released on Twitter. We are touched about recent concern over the future of our beloved clay creations, but wanted to reassure fans that there is absolutely no need to worry. We have high levels of existing stock of modeling clay to service current and future productions. And much like Wallace in his workshop, we've been tinkering away behind the scenes for quite some time with plans in place to ensure a smooth transition to new stocks to continue to make our iconic productions. So, what was going to be a story that was going to be doom and gloom is actually like not that, which is great.
Yes,
Uh I Maggie, how like were you worried
I
when you saw
was.
this?
I love Aardman. Like, I think one of the highlights of Star Wars Celebration earlier this year was getting to meet people who work for Aardman and getting to screen the Star Wars Visions Aardman short at Star Wars Celebration in England, like the home of Aardman, and that was like the highlight of that. And so I was really worried when I saw the story go up yesterday because I was like, I don't want this to be the end of Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit and like all of the stories that they have to tell, because like claymation is great. I'm a really big fan of both stop motion and claymation. I think I actually like both of those styles of animation more than like regular hand drawn or like visually created stuff. I just like the medium. It's so different.
I at the
And
very least think I like it better than 3D. At the
oh
very
yeah,
least.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I was really worried. So I was really happy when they're like, guys, it's fine, we're fine. But I was really touched to see how many people were like, I'm going to go into the clay business. Like, what do I need to do? Like, because it's a very specific kind of like plasticine clay that they use. And so it was just really fun to see people being like, do we need like a petition to the British government to like get this? Like, what do we need to do? This is like a national treasure. So it was really great to see just how many people reacted. And to those of you who were like, well, this is great because I hate claymation, shame on you. Shame on every single one of you.
You are a monster.
You're a terrible person.
You have no joy in your life,
Like, who
and I
hurt
feel
you?
sorry for you.
Because I saw
Uh
those tweets and I was just like, who hurt you? How could you hate Wallace and Gromit?
yeah, it was one of those things that because I actually learned about it because I saw your tweet about it.
Yeah.
Because I was like getting ready to pull stories and I was looking on Twitter and your tweet popped up to the top and I was like, oh, that's something we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Uh, so because as I said, I grew up watching Chicken Run. I
Yeah.
wasn't as much of like a Wallace and Gromit guy. I watched some of it, but like with my childhood, it just wasn't something that we watched. Uh,
Yeah.
but still, it's such a great medium, and to see one of the big studios in that area shut down would have been incredibly sad and would have been a major tragedy. But I'm thankful that we get to put kind of a happy ending on this. So if you see people today spreading the news that they're in trouble, make sure to let them know, no, it's okay. Aardman said that they are in a good place and you can trust what they're going to say. That isn't just PR spin. I kind of figured that they would have figured
Yeah.
out an alternative. Like this is something that they work so closely with the company that I would imagine that they knew this was coming. and it
Yeah.
wasn't like a shock to the system. But
And
yeah,
hey,
it's good.
I think this was the best marketing they could have possibly done for the new chicken run.
Yeah.
Dawn
So
of the Nugget. I mean, it was like it worked really well accidentally for them that people are like, no, we can't lose this. And so I guarantee it's going to do really well when it lands on Netflix.
that is such a fantastic name for that film, by the way. But anyways, moving on from that to something a little bit potentially infuriating, potentially it really just depends on how you feel about Disney in general. Let's talk about Mickey Mouse turning 95. Now, Mickey Mouse turning 95 might seem like one of those things where you're like, oh, that's cute. He's 95 years old. Yay, happy birthday, Mickey. But here's the thing. Mickey Mouse turning 95 is actually a pretty big and important landmark in
Yes.
terms of like legal
Yeah. He can
reasons.
now officially run to be a senator.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Jokes about our aging legislative body. All right. Anyways, no, at 95 years old, Mickey Mouse officially is running to the end of his copyright protections. Which means that next year, when this time rolls around, if something doesn't change, Mickey Mouse will fall into the public domain. Now there are a couple asterisks on this. One thing here is that Steamboat Willie will be in the public domain, but Mickey Mouse is still a registered trademark. And trademark does not expire the way that copyright does. It actually exists within perpetuity.
Mhm.
So nobody's going to be producing new Mickey Mouse cartoons that are not Disney. That's not a thing because it's still a registered trademark of Disney. But that is not the big important thing to pay attention to. Whenever Mickey Mouse comes up, historically, whenever he comes up for the end of his copyright like situation, it has always caused a major shift in copyright law. And it's always caused an extension. This has happened several times. 1977 was the first time that it happened where Mickey Mouse was going to be going into public domain, and that's when we had the what was it called? The Copyright Term Extension Act, also known as the Sonny Bono Copyright Act or the Mickey Mouse Act. That was the first one that extended it. Then we had one in 1997 that all that did was kicked the can down the road a little bit to 1998, which was the next time that it happened. And then there was 2019 where it happened, and now we're coming up on yet another one. So what is this potentially going to mean? Well, if things go the way that you expect it to go because of how it has in the past, Disney will probably either already has or is going to start pushing lobbyists super hard to get another extension on
Mhm.
copyright, which might sound like something that isn't really a concern, or maybe you might even think that that's a good thing. It's not. Um, because here's something you need to understand. And Maggie, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I'm sure that you have thoughts and opinions on this. Things falling into the public domain is a good thing
Mhm.
culturally. As a society, it is good for things that we as a society recognize as an important thing for it to eventually become the property of everybody so that
Yeah.
it can be built upon, so it could be used as something that people can use to grow their own ideas and projects, is historically a good thing. So copyright being further extended is only going to inhibit that ability. Maggie, you want to have anything to add to this?
The only way in which I could see this being a positive is if Disney packages in their next slate of lobbying with something to also protect against AI, which I clearly believe is gearing up both with Disney and just everybody else whose intellectual property is being infringed by this, AI situation. And so it does make me wonder because I've seen a lot of AI Mickey Mouse um, stuff if Disney will use that. And then I'll be like, yeah, that's fine if you extend your copyright, if you also protect intellectual property. So I could see that happening just because it's coinciding with such a large kind of movement that's happening already. And since there does seem to be some stuff with Disney already going after people who are using things like their trademarked logos and things like that, maybe they'll package it in. And in which case, then I'll be like, okay, Disney, do your thing, fight the fight. Because Mickey Mouse has always been able to fight the fights that other people otherwise would not be able to fight. So that's the only place in which I see it being a positive. I don't want to see blood and honey style Mickey Mouse movies. So
Yeah,
there's a certain part of me that's like, can it not go into the public domain? Because that's just weird.
that's the thing, is that is a recent example of a major recognizable character falling into public domain and being used. Like, here's the thing: Winnie the Pooh falling into public domain is a good thing. Whether or
Yeah,
not you think
100%.
that Blood and Honey was a good thing, that is entirely up for debate. But that also brings me to another interesting point about all of this. If a character falls into public domain, that doesn't necessarily mean that the way that they are depicted in later works is fair game. An
Yeah.
example of this is Sherlock Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was, with Enola Holmes, there was a whole
Whole
legal
thing.
situation because Sherlock Holmes was perceived by some people to be sharing traits that only appeared in later works of Sherlock Holmes that were not in the public domain.
Yeah.
So when something falls into public domain, you have to try to almost put your own spin on it. Dracula is a great example. Dracula himself is in public domain, but the Bela Lugosi Universal Dracula is not.
Yeah.
So you can't have the, I want to suck your blood, blah, like Dracula without talking to Universal.
Yeah.
It has to be its own thing. So even if Mickey Mouse were to fall into the public domain and it wasn't protected by trademark, which it's going to be, you wouldn't be able to have the same Mickey. It
Yeah.
would have to be a different take on the Mickey that you saw specifically in Steamboat Willie, because that is what is going to be falling into public domain.
Which is
Not,
frankly the most terrifying Mickey Mouse. I mean, that Steamboat Willie Mickey is like prime for a horror movie.
I mean, there was a horror game that was basically based around that style of
It's
animation.
terrifying.
So yeah, it's terrifying stuff. But it's just something that you should be aware of as someone who consumes media, that this is potentially going to be something that is going to impact the industry as a whole. You can form your own opinions on whether or not you think that it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's entirely up to you. I would just say, honestly, this is one of those things that is actually really, really interesting. At least I think so, as somebody who has a degree in media. So it might be worth, reading some books, reading some articles, checking it out, learning a little bit about the situation, and seeing what it is. But outside of that, happy birthday to Mickey Mouse, I guess. Uh, his birthday was, I want to say, yesterday. I think. I think yesterday was the actual official day. It might have been Saturday, but yeah. So just pay attention to that for next year. Be aware that it is a thing that is going to be happening. I will say that if copyright isn't extended, though, we're going to have a fun next few years, because there are other major characters who will fall into the public domain if it doesn't get extended. Within the next 5 years, we will see Batman and Superman joining the public domain, which could be exciting.
Very
Uh,
exciting.
but the same deal with Mickey Mouse. I feel like that's not going to happen. Warner Brothers won't let it happen.
No. Well, with how Warner Brothers is right now, Zaslav might just sell them off to the highest bidder. Just saying.
You're not wrong. Anyways, that's all that we have story-wise for Collider Dailies today. I hope that you enjoyed it. We're going to do a little bit of house cleaning. First of all, at the beginning of the show, we teased that Maggie was going to talk about what she's doing at Fan Expo. So,
Yeah.
Maggie, if you want to give a little bit of a spiel for everyone.
Yes. So this weekend, I will be moderating panels for James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm doing a panel for the Ladies of Charmed, a panel for Awesome Women in Sci Fi. And then to cap off the weekend, I am moderating a panel for Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Mr. Ewan McGregor, which I just cannot believe is happening. And I'm very excited for. And we will also be doing a Collider Dailies episode live from the creator stage on Friday. So if you are attending Fan Expo in San Francisco, be sure to come. It will be myself and Arzu. And if you aren't joining us for that, you will be able to watch it next week when we drop the episode here on YouTube, Collider Extras.
That'll be exciting stuff. I'm very excited to see you guys do a live episode.
I can't wait to see
I'm
what
gonna
it
be
looks
watching.
like.
Yeah, that's gonna be the thing for me, is that, like, because I've been working behind the scenes on this show so much with Perry and with everybody, and it's exciting to finally see one thing that we talked about in the early days when
Happen.
we were conceptualizing this show. When we were all talking, we were all like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to do live episodes together when we're at events and things of that nature. So it's gonna be
Yeah,
really cool to see it. And it's going to be especially cool to see both you and Arzu doing it.
I know.
I
I'm
think that
really excited.
that's a great pairing right there, because you guys are just a lot of fun to see talk to each other. So seeing you guys in one place doing it is going to be a great time. So
Okay.
yeah, if you're at Fan Expo, go check out those things. See what Maggie's doing. Arzu's going to be there. See what she's doing, and just have a good time all around. I am actually I'm quite jealous, because I actually wish I was at Fan Expo, because it sounds like there's going to be a ton of super fun stuff. It honestly
I'm
might
excited.
be, of the like conventions since like the strikes happened, it seems like this is going to be the fun one,
It is.
because
And I'm like, wow, we timed this perfectly.
yeah, because like, both of the big Comic Cons this year, San Diego and New York, were in the middle of the strikes. There was a lot of stuff that would have been there that wasn't there, and now it seems like it's all going to be at Fan Expo. So that's pretty exciting stuff.
We
So
lucked out.
you have fun with that. Uh, Also, one more thing, that this is my usual spiel, that if you've been watching this show all month, you've heard this, but I'm gonna keep doing it all the way up until the end of the month. If you might notice, I am particularly fuzzy wuzzy, and that's because I am taking part in No Shave November, which is something that I feel rather strongly about. It's about raising awareness for prostate cancer. So on that note, I'm going to drop a link in the chat here to get you to don't, or there will be a link to the American Cancer Society, so that you can go and donate if you can, to help fight cancer, to help fund cancer research, something that is incredibly important, not just for prostate cancer, but for all cancer of all shapes and sizes. Because it is a curse that needs to be broken. It is a pox on humanity that needs to be taken out. And so, yeah, be sure to go do that. I myself will be donating as well this month. At the end of the month, I'm going to drop as much as I can. Like, I have to do it within my means, but around the time that I shave, I usually also donate. So I will be doing that as well. So anything that you can throw out there would be great. If you can't, just spread the word. It's something that I think everyone across the board should probably care about. And with that, that is all that we have today for Collider Dailies. Join us tomorrow, where Perry and Steve will be talking about something. I don't know. And they'll be doing all that and having a great time. We will be here for the rest of the week. We do have something for Thanksgiving that is going to be coming out. It is going to be a pre-recorded interview. We're not going to tell you who, but be sure to watch for that. That's actually going to be Maggie and I doing that interview, and we're super excited. I'm
We
I'm
are.
I am pumped for you guys to find out who we're actually talking to. Uh,
Same.
it's going to be a great time. But so stick around all throughout this week. There's going to be more Collider Dailies. We're going to be bringing you all the news that you care about, and some that you probably don't as well, because that's how this works. Anyways, I hope you have a magnificent rest of your day, and I will see you next time.